Hello everyone, welcome back to the Sweeney Show Business Law Podcast. Joining me here this morning, live from Dublin Airport, I believe, is Marcus Buachalla, former solicitor, who I met actually way back in our Buachalla days. Got some sense and left the legal profession and is now as head of communications and marketing with Leinster Rugby, no doubt. Marcus, you're very welcome.
Thanks a million, Dave. Yeah, I was in preparation for this chat this morning. I was going through old photos and I was trying to get that photo of you in the leather jacket that you wore the night that we lost in the Trench Cup when we had a night out in Limerick. But fortunately for you, I couldn't find the photo. It's on a memory disc somewhere, so that's maybe where it has to stay for the time being. But if I do get it, I'll be sure to send it on to you.
They were great days because like your background is GA, isn't it? Like you're footballing and you're steeped in GA history.
Yeah, it would be. Look, I'd be. I had to keep that very quiet. Obviously, when going for the Leinster gig, I had to waffle my way through that interview process. But yeah, no. Look, I suppose the background is GA. Would have played with Chemical Crokes all the way through from. Somebody will hear this and then will say you played with Coola first. So I did play with Coola first. I was in the nursery with Coola when we were living out Cloney direction, and then we moved as a family. We moved closer to kind of. Kilmacud, Slorgan direction, and when I was 11, I think, started playing with Kilmacud. So yeah, played with Kilmacud all the way through. Played a little bit of senior football with them. Played a little bit underage with Dublin and stuff like that. But then I think other things got in the way, and injuries, and other lads being faster, better, stronger, taller in particular than me. But look, loved it and stayed involved with GA and would have coached and all that kind of stuff. So GA, I suppose, was the passion.
Yeah, because
and,
even
still is to this day.
That Buachalla team was, I think, the first competitive team that came out of Buachalla, wasn't it, at the time? And you put it together.
Yeah, so, well, look, there was others involved as well. Padraig Maw and young Roscoe there as well. Yeah. And, look, but the year before, I think, in fairness to them, they'd set the foundations. There was a team that was put together and played a couple of challenge matches, but as I understand it, we were the first team to enter into the Trench Cup, which was, I suppose, the third level. Wasn't quite Sigerson, but it was a level of third level.
Well, we met the famous Tommy Walsh. He played that day against him down Limerick.
I don't know. I don't know if mess is the way I describe it. Playing in the backs and looking behind me into the full back line and seeing Tommy Walsh tearing everyone a new one was quite the experience. He was some athlete, like Jesus. When you see, I suppose he would have been a couple of years younger.
When was that? 2006, 7 year around then, wasn't it? 7.
Yeah, exactly. So, but he was just some athlete. Like he was so powerfully built even then. Yeah. And you could see that he was going to have. Well, he was already having a bright future at underage with Kerry and stuff like that. You could see that there was good things in store for him. And obviously, he won his All Ireland, went off to the AFL, but there were great times, Dave, as you well remember.
Yeah, it was brilliant.
It was a great way. Look, being in college is great, but it's about what you do in college, whether you're doing your undergrad, your postgrad, or professional qualifications. And it's what the other experiences that you pull together. And I think that year, being able to pull together a Gaelic football team and everything that we got out of it just made that Buachalla experience all the better.
And we had the famous Paddy O'Shea, you remember? Gave us a pre-match.
We did, and that was a photo that I came across this morning. Yeah. There's a great photo of him talking to us the night before that match in the Trench Cup. And I always remember the myxomatosis story about the rabbits. And he was talking about the work ethic that's involved and that's needed in any team, really, leaving aside sports team, but a team. But what gets in at the team ethic and the team culture and can spread like a virus is a lack of work ethic and somebody not working hard. And the example he gave was a corner forward. If a corner forward doesn't defend for all his life, that spreads through the team and suddenly then it kind of creeps in. And then the comparison he gave was myxomatosis. When myxomatosis gets into one rabbit, it's going to spread to them all. So got a good reaction,
he
a
was
good
brilliant,
giggle. And
brilliant
he was a larger than life character. I would have known him from back West Kerry and stuff. And managed to get him in, and it was just great to be in the company of a legend of GA. Obviously, he's sadly now passed, but great memories.
So you have a BNL, so Business and Law degree from UCD, and just interested on your career path. And you actually were in a top 5 firm, William Fry, went through Buachalla, qualified solicitor and worked. So, like, what kind of, I'm not going to say pivot, but you obviously had some kind of a moment where
the recession
was it. Well, we all went through the recession, but some people stayed in law, and stayed on it. And I'm sure there was opportunity for you. Was it that, was marketing and PR and communications, is that where you always wanted to be? Or was it just, you know, just
no. Look, I suppose I'm being flippant in just putting it down to the recession. There's two elements to it. One, that I qualified into projects and construction at a time when everyone stopped projecting and constructing. So look, that was just one of those things. There's plenty of people in my intake, no more than yourself, that are still working away in the legal game. And you know, if I had chosen a different path in William Fry, who knows what would have happened. But I qualified into projects and construction. Had a year and a half post-qualification experience, and it was really then that the recession was taking hold. And you know, I don't say this with any slight on William Fry, but any work that was coming in, I suppose, was taken by those in the unit that were ahead of me or whatever, and which is rightly so. And it was difficult to pick up decent work, really, you know, and so I looked for an internal move first. Again, all the other units were, I suppose, downsizing or certainly consolidating, so there was no opportunity there. And being honest, I kind of, you know, I had a good relationship with William Fry, and they said, look, if you can't work anything internally, we'll give you 6 months to sort that out, and then, you know, we'll write you a good reference and wish you all the best. And I definitely naively thought that, look, I'd just pick up another job somewhere else. You kind of think you've done everything right in life. You've picked up a decent leaving. You've, as you mentioned, you've got your degree, you've got your professional qualification, the big five, all of that. But no replies to CVs, no replies to applications, etc. It was a very, very difficult time. So, but what I had been doing while in William Fry and Blackwell is just dabbling in a little bit of media and doing a lot of GA stuff. And I'm not talking anything huge here. I'm talking like local radio in Dublin, Radio na Litha, who gave me they gave me an hour-long sports show on a Sunday night, Oscoilga, and just started tapping away at things. And I was able to then do a couple of little nixers like that while I was with William Fry, all above board. I asked for permission and stuff like that. But and when I left there, it just kind of, I was a year unemployed, really. I was doing a little bit of teaching gigs and stuff like that, but I kept up filling the CV with different bits and bobs. And I suppose, look, stating the bleeding obvious, but there wasn't that many young lads in sport or sports commentary or reporting Oscoilga. So I just managed to pick up a couple of gigs along the way. And then you mentioned the PR angle to it. I suppose I was doing voluntary work
on the
well
go. So did you go to Irish schools and you speak Irish at home with your family? Do you? And
but again, like that, I would have spoken at home. So grew up in Dublin, but Dad's links would have been West Kerry, so he was brought up in the Kerry Gaeltacht and had the Irish language. Mom is a Dub, but was also brought up to Irish in Dublin. Her roots are, both her parents, my grandparents, are Cork, but they would have brought up their family in Dublin to Irish, and then Mum and Dad met in West Kerry when Mom was doing summer holidays and stuff back there. So I had Irish from home, then went to Scoilurcon and Ballinammonach, went to Closhdown and Slorgan. So Irish education, Irish at home, so it was... It is my first language. Look, wouldn't have really thrown myself into the English language. So it's a wonder I'm able to put a sentence together here with you today, Asperla. But
it is a wonder.
So while I was doing that, like one really good piece of advice that I give to a lot of people looking to get into media is you got to keep the CV tipping along. And when I was out of work for that year, I did voluntary work. I was doing charity work. I was doing this, that, and that, because you never know where you'll meet somebody, and that's ultimately what happened. I was doing a bit of voluntary work.
So this is your flight, is it?
No, that's me. I'm not going to Faro. I'm only going to London. So I just kept the CV tipping along, Dave. And through one of those contacts, one day, a fella said to me, "Listen, are you still at a loose end?" And I said, "No, not really. I'm going to go back to college." So I was going to go back to college and train as a teacher, so that they had all these holidays, and I wanted a bit of that. But he said, "Look, I've got a 6-month contract here in the sports sponsorship division in a PR agency in Dublin called Pembroke Communications." He said, "Do you want to interview for it?" And I said, "Look, it's a 6-month gig. If I don't get it, I don't get it." Got it, and lasted 5 years in Pembroke. Finished up as an account director. Would have worked with Under Armour, UEFA, ladies football, the GA, Dublin GA, AIG. List goes on. And then I just wanted to change, and I kind of saw a role for a head of communications role in Leinster Rugby. And again, look, people kind of, I know we were joking about it earlier about the GA and the rugby, but the job is what I love. I love working in communications. And then just the fact that it's in a professional sporting organisation just makes it even better, you know. So,
but that legal background...
8 years, and it goes in the blink of an eye.
And do you think the legal background is giving you good grounding?
Massively, yeah. Do you know what I really think, Dave? And look, you'll know this, from your side and setting up your own practice and stuff like that. You know, the key part of it is servicing, you know, and looking after a client that professional respect you get for that relationship, I think, is massive. And that's something that I really took a huge stock. I suppose learned a lot in William Fry and how they manage those relationships, the respect you have to have. Not necessarily the client is always right, but the client is ultimately paying the bills at the end of the month. And so I think from that point of view, in terms of just understanding the relationships that exist, I think that was massive. And then the other side is, look, what do I work in? I work in communications. What is communications? Communications is your word, and your word is your bond. And at the heart of any good legal document, any good legal contract, is the word, the definition of a word, how it can be interpreted. So, in my role in Leinster Rugby as head of communications, working with young players who've never been in front of media, working with older players, working with coaches and coaching staff, working with sponsors, working with charity partners, working on contracts. A lot of that has given me a really, really good foundation for the work that I do now. And if you had asked me when we were in Blackwell that I'd be in this role, I'd say you're off your rocker, which I told you often enough. But here we are, and the foundation was definitely laid by
was there
that
any
experience.
I know you obviously had history in sport, different types of sport, but when you joined a professional sporting organisation, was your eyes open to the actual business of sport itself? Like how we're all watching teams play, but what goes on in the background and how the actual business is run.
Massively. And again, that's the other side of it, is just that you see the tip of the iceberg for the 80 minutes on a Friday, but you don't see the minis out in Longford Rugby Club or down in Tullamore. Like and that's the thing with Leinster Rugby, which is very different to the English model or the French model. It's a dual mandate. So yes, I'm the head of communications for Leinster Rugby, but that doesn't just mean working with Leo Cullen or Tanya Rosser, the two head coaches that we have for the men and the women's team. It's actually head of communications for the whole of Leinster Rugby, and that dual mandate goes all the way down to your minis, your grassroots, your schools, your clubs, and making sure that we've got foot soldiers on the ground going in and spreading the gospel. So open up my eyes massively to the organisation and how it works, and then all the stakeholders that there are, whether it's sponsors, broadcasters, charity partners, etc. So it is massive, and again, most people just see the tip of the iceberg on an 80 minutes of a Friday or a Saturday afternoon, but the work that goes on to try to make sure that there's a rugby ball put into the hands of over 40,000 people in the 12 counties of Leinster on a weekly basis is huge. And us, from a communications point of view, telling that story so that we can be to the front of mind for the mums and dads wanting to send their kids down to a club.
Wasn't that part of maybe the Leinster transition when they started getting their success? When was the first Heineken Cup? 2012, was it? No? But just before that, there seemed to be a huge disconnect between the team and the actual people of Leinster. And you just mentioned there the 12 counties that seem like there's a huge buy-in now, isn't there? The whole province of Leinster is behind this team, and they're part of it.
Yeah, look, don't get me wrong, Dave. Like that still be a perception, and I would have had that perception before I joined Leinster, that I had a sense of, look, it was very D4, it was very Dublin, it was very private schools, and it's taken people like a Sean O'Brien from Carlow, it's Tyg Furlong from Wexford, Adam Byrne from Kildare, Peter Dooley from Offaly. All these guys come in to show there is another side to it, but I don't, look, the narrative suited and it sold papers and it made headlines and all that kind of stuff, but the reality is very, very different, and I'm delighted to be part of that now and trying to tell that story. Like, we went on a 12 county tour last week, Thursday and Friday. We had 12 counties, 12 clubs, 12 locations in 2 days, 2 bus loads of players, and look, just the engagement and the crack and the fun that was had was unbelievable. And nobody was saying, oh, he's from Dublin, he's from Offaly. They're all Leinster players, and I think that has been the shift. And look, don't get me, the success helps absolutely, that you can tell those stories, the 4 Heineken Cups and the Celtic League Pro 12, Pro 14s. We haven't won a URC yet, but they all help in terms of telling that story. Even our women's team going so well, and we've been able to put them front and centre. We've had double headers in Energia Park. They played in Twickenham for the first time ever, for a club team to play in Twickenham a couple of years ago. And that all helps us tell that story, that we're not just the private schools in South County Dublin. Yes, they're a key part of what we do, but are the only thing? No, absolutely not. So that perception has changed. It's not there yet, and we've still a work to do, but it's certainly changing.
Just on sponsorship with teams or with Leinster itself, does the funding equal success, or does success bring the funding? Are they exclusive? Are they, like, how is it a catch-22, or how does that roll, or that snowball, or that start?
our funding model is very interesting. So, and every club's funding model will be different. So, yes, we do take some funding from the IRFU and from government grants, like all sports governing bodies and professional clubs would do. But our model would be 52% ticket sales. And then you have maybe the guts at 30%, which is sponsorship.
And sorry, just of the ticket sales, sorry, are they season ticket holders, or are they pay at the gate, or what would be the percentage most of season tickets?
Both. So that's season ticket holders with, and then standalone games. But you can't obviously budget for knockout games and all that kind of stuff. So our model is based roughly half is ticket sales. Then you've got maybe 30%, which is your sponsorship and your corporates and all that, and then the other element then is the IRFU money and the government money and all that kind of stuff. But that 51%, that bums on seats. If you're tanking week in, week out, are you going to get that level of investment? Are you going to get that level of buy-in? And the real struggle that we had as a club, look, all clubs and all organisations had it during COVID, was that's 51% of your revenue model gone overnight, literally gone. And yet all your wages and your costs and everything, nothing changed there. Everyone still needed to be paid and looked after. So definitely a big struggle. So to your question about the success piece, I think you nearly need to move away from that, because if you're reliant on success and trophies, that 51% suddenly drops very, very quickly. So you nearly need to make sure that the connection, you spoke about the connection there, and are we 12 counties, are we South County Dublin? If that connection piece isn't right, why would you, as a little Mary or Michael, want to come to the RDS or Energia Park to watch the senior men or women's team? Why would you want that? So you need to make sure that the connection is strong, regardless of what happens on a trophy at the end of the season. If that connection is there, well, then they're going to come back week after week after week, and that's what put bums on seats. And then making sure that the game that they go to, the game, I think Leo speaks and Tanya speaks a fair bit about the brand of rugby that Leinster plays, and I think that's important. If you're up the jumper and it's not entertaining, why would you travel from Longford, from Wicklow, from Wexford, etc.? So that's important. And then the event that you put on. I mean, like if you're losing, but it's an enjoyable experience, at least people have something to come along to. So the success thing definitely allows you to leverage more. It gives you more eyeballs for sponsorship and negotiations and all that kind of stuff. It makes you the more attractive proposition for broadcasters, maybe in terms of those key fixtures. But if your model is reliant on success, you're going to have 15 teams every year that are going to be very, very disappointed in the URC, and 20 odd teams in Europe and stuff like that. So the model is far more nuanced. But did the 4 trophies in Europe help? Absolutely. Does reaching a final and losing to La Rochelle help? Of course it does. Look at those colours and the scenes we had in Marseille. People that were there will remember that forever and want more of it. And that's what you want.
When what's the kind of attitude towards Leinster Rugby when an individual starts looking for, or I suppose their profile starts to get bigger and an individual sponsor's coming with the player? Is there any conflict between a player's individual sponsor deal and the teams, or how's that all been put together?
Yeah, there is. So there would be quite a bit of protection put in place for sponsors and partners. But the primary protection is for premium partners. So, for example, look, the obvious example is Bank of Ireland. Bank of Ireland is somewhere on my top here. It's over here, and Adidas obviously is here. So for Bank of Ireland, a Johnny Sexton tomorrow morning can't rock in and be the ambassador for AIB. The most obvious example that's there. So that level of protection is provided to the premium partners. But the further down the food chain you go, the exclusivity kind of gets less and less. And a good example is we have an excellent relationship with Windsor Motors, who provide a fleet of cars for some of our players. But you have other players then that have deals with Toyota or Mazda or whatever, and there's absolutely no problem there. But again, there would be restrictions around what they can and can't do. And the same with even the sponsors that we have. There's rules around their engagement with our players. They have to use a minimum of 3 players. If they only used 1, that creates the impression that maybe there's an ambassadorial relationship between that one player and that brand. So there has to be a minimum of 3. And, if you look at your posters around the place, most posters for Sky Sports will have 6, 7, 8, 9 athletes on it. If they were just to reduce that down to 1, that creates the impression of a relationship between that athlete and Sky Sports. So again, that would lead to their agent going, here, listen, you need to send me a few more zeros for this to work. That's why they have athletes across their posters.
When the influence of agents, because obviously professional rugby is the mid-90s, 94 onwards, but Ireland only really grasped it in the early 90s, so we're not even 20 years. But when did all that technical stuff and all that thing about advertising and agents, when has that really come into play now, and is that heavy going when you have to deal with agents and third parties?
Look, I'm
or is it just part of the job now?
Oh, it's just part of the job,
Yeah.
but I think that's good. Like, it's protection for everyone. Like, it's protection for the players. That is me.
Is it?
So
Okay. I have two quick questions. So.
But that is part and parcel of it, and it's protection for everyone. It's protection for the club, it's protection for the player, and it's protection for the sponsors.
Yeah.
And that's massively, massively important, Dave, because you don't want to be stretched at any end for anyone involved.
From a communications point
of view,
I'm going to
start walking, Dave, but I can.
Yeah, you're grand. So, because just so people know, Mark is actually. You're flying to London. Are you Harlequins? Is that tonight? Is that where you're on? Pre-season game.
First pre-season friendly is this evening.
So my two quick questions. My one is, how do you deal from a communications point of view with a crisis, public relations? Some rugby player's out enjoying himself, gets himself in a situation. Someone does something on the pitch, and it's not, the Leinster way or whatever. How is that dealt with in house, and how do you deal with it publicly, or are the two separate or the same?
Really good question, and I suppose, look, the reality is we have had issues. Thankfully, not too many issues with Leinster Rugby, but there have been issues that have had to be dealt with. How do we deal with them? I think the first and foremost is, from any crisis communications point of view, is just being ahead of the story, and it's really important that you have those relationships. I'm lucky I'm here 8 years, so we have a process we have a process in play now in terms of, when something does happen. But as I said, we're lucky we haven't had too many. But really, really crucially, is the relationships within an organisation. So having clarity and honesty in terms of what has happened. And there's no point trying to kick something down the road, or it has to be dealt with front up. Honest conversations straight off the bat. And then, look, we're very lucky again in that I'm not working in isolation. Like, I've got a really good relationship with the director of rugby operations in Leinster. I used to be a really good relationship with Leo Cullen. And then on the commercial and marketing side of it, like Kevin Quinn, who's our head of commercial marketing, Mick Dawson, our CEO, and that senior management team, I think, having that
a lot of experience there.
Yeah, it is, and it's a lot of grey hairs and a little bit of balding hairs as well. But it is important that you have people who'll challenge you as well. I think, Dave, is really important in a crisis, because if you just have yes people, I don't think really that helps deal with the situation. You need to have people who are willing to challenge the status quo, willing to ask the difficult questions in that room. And quite often that's my role as the head of communications, is kind of go, right, if I'm looking at this from a media point of view, and this is the release we put together, or this is how we're going to deal with this crisis, I'm stress testing that answer. I'm stress testing that Leinster response. And it makes me very unpopular in some meetings because people think it's coming from me, but it has to be stress tested in that room. So we're very lucky we'd have a senior management team meeting every 2 weeks, regardless of crisis or not. So you're constantly trying to stay ahead of the potential next crisis or the potential next issue. But again, like, I can't speak highly enough of the hierarchy as well from the IRFU. Like, during COVID, which is probably the most recent crisis that we all had to face, like weekly meetings with the IRFU and the other 3 provinces. And again, that's what I mean in terms of senior management. It's not just me. I have my own internal team in communications. I have my own team that I can rely on in senior management in Leinster. And then there's an excellent relationship up that food chain to the IRFU, but also with the other clubs around me. And I think that's really important in terms of the, I suppose, the infrastructure of this sport, which is rugby in Ireland.
You just mentioned the IRFU there, and obviously there's a very, I won't say strange, but it's a unique relationship in Ireland with rugby players. The IRFU kind of are the umbrella organisation, a lot of central contracted players, and you have your own contracted players. How is that? I know there's a delicate management on a player level. How is that managed on a marketing level? Like, do Leinster ever? Is there a crossover? Do you have to watch what the IRFU are doing, what you're doing, or you just your own entity?
A little bit, but we're very much like, as I said, I mentioned earlier, I explained the kind of the revenue model that we have. So we're not necessarily reliant on the IRFU, and the IRFU aren't reliant on us. If the IRFU, and I'm not for a second suggesting this is going to happen or that they would do it, but if they drop their funding to us in the morning, we're fairly self-sufficient that we could crack on. But there is a healthy respect. So, for example, good example, we've got Adidas as a kit partner. They've got Canterbury. You have to have a respect for that. They need to do their bit and we need to do our bit. But the reality is too that if you look at the core demographic of supporters that we have, in Dublin and in Leinster, there's a lot of the same wallets gone after. But you just have to respect when they're in the way I always put it is, if when their time is with green, you just leave them at it, and when they're with blue, they're left at it here. And it's it's a healthy respect. We just communication. We keep talking the whole time. Those weekly meetings that I mentioned earlier, that's where all those things get trashed out and discussed and stuff like that. Because whether it's a crisis or everything is going well, if you don't have those relationships, it's far more difficult, I find, to have difficult conversations. If you have a healthy relationship with the team around you, the stakeholders that you're dealing with, when you're having a difficult conversation, it's fine, because you know that at the heart of it all, or behind it all, you're dealing with good skins.
Marcus, thank you so much.
That's what I'd like to think I have around me.
Yeah, and you're one yourself. You're probably one of the best. I'm just going to quickly, what are Leinster going to win this year?
What are Leinster going to win this year? We're hopefully, I'm going to go, this is awful. I was nearly going to go into coaches talk there. We're going to focus on the Harlequins game tonight. But no, look.
Who's going to win the Champions Cup? What's your prediction? Apart from Leinster?
I can't do that, right? Sure. It'll be hung up on somebody's wall. Look, the only thing I'd say, Dave, is I think from a Leinster point of view, it's pretty exciting. We lost a fair amount of players, to Connacht or to retirement over the course of the pre-season. But, we've Charlie Natai and Jason Jenkins that have come in. And there's a really exciting group of 7 that have come into year 1 of the academy, which there's a lot expected of. And then you look at the likes of Joe McCarthy, who was pulling up trees last year, Jimmy O'Brien, and these kind of lads. So I think it's pretty exciting. But the interesting thing, and you have the likes I'll leave you on this. Yeah, no, I was just going to say I'll leave you on this, but I think one of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years is the evolution of how we do communications from a business point of view. And I did want to make this point, because you're very good in these podcasts and on your of talking to others, but I do think it's important to throw a little bit of hot air back up your whatever, is that businesses have to evolve. And I think what you're doing as a relatively young business owner, and how you look to engage with your audience, whether it's your vlogs in the morning or doing this, that's how businesses are going to evolve. That's how they're going to connect with a younger demographic, how they're going to keep the business going. And the most fun I get is looking at the algorithms, trying to figure out your accent when they're actually putting down the subtitles at the bottom. So if you can figure out the algorithm that can figure out your accent, Davey Sweeney, you'll be going a long way.
Thank you so much, Akar. I appreciate your time. Safe flight, and we'll talk again soon. Take care. Thank you so much.
I'd love to do it again, and I love the Sweeney Show. #1